Okay, I gotta be honest. When I first watched the unveiling of God of War Laufey, I'm over here expecting it to go, uh-uh, this ain't it, man. Santa Monica, you screwed the pooch on this one. However, unexpectedly, I did find myself enjoying the gameplay. It still felt like God of War. And if I'm being honest here, that realization kinda terrified me for a minute. Because I think everybody is arguing about the wrong thing here. Because I think the real question isn't, can God of War survive without Kratos? But it's a much scarier question, such as, can God of War slowly make us stop needing Kratos? Now, hold on. Before you grab your pitchforks and torches and start spamming my comment section, just chill. Calm down. Look, I get why people are upset. I get why fans are pissed. God of War is Kratos. For 20 years, the franchise trained us to believe that when there's a different mythology, we still get the same Kratos. Whether it's Greek, Norse, we still get the same emotional center. So then when people hear that you are removing the star of the show in a mainline God of War game, it isn't really hard to imagine people going, hey, I didn't sign up for this. That, in and of itself, is not an irrational response. However, I also think that fans might be missing something important here. Because if we take a look at the long history of gaming archives, we have been proven wrong multiple times about these types of situations. For example, take the character Raiden from Metal Gear Solid, not Mortal Kombat. Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear fans absolutely lost their freaking minds when they discovered that the character they would be playing as in Metal Gear Solid 2 was not going to be Solid Snake, as they were led to believe. But it was a bait and switch in which a new protagonist, Raiden, would be helming the rest of the game. People were pissed. It almost started a world war. That's how crazy it was back in the day. Fast forward 20 or so years later, people now widely regard Raiden as one of the most beloved characters in the entire Metal Gear franchise. Not necessarily the most beloved, but one of the most beloved characters in the franchise. Let me put it like that. He even has his own game, and fans are still crying, saying that they want Metal Gear Revengeance to be at least remastered or remade for newer consoles. You see the Switch? And you'd be surprised, because this thing actually happens quite a lot in video games. A new protagonist comes along, fans quickly panic, franchise survives, and fans are happy. But of course, that is not always the case. But another thing that I'd like to point out, which nobody seems to be separating here, there are times whereby a franchise or a game will survive mechanically, while at the same time feeling emotionally incomplete or different. Like, for example, Ragnarok already tested this with the Atreus sections. When you played as Atreus, for the first maybe 5 to 10 minutes, you were like, yeah, okay, this is different, this is nice, it's kind of cool. But then, how did you feel when you discovered that you were going to be playing Atreus for an entire hour? Pretty sure you felt pissed. But then, do you remember how you felt when you were finally put in the shoes of Kratos again? There was that emotional gravitas that, like, yes, this is what I came here for. The blades, the rage, this is it. So if you're on the pro-Faye side of things, you can understand why the anti-Faye side of the internet is scared of this game. And I think with the Atreus section in God of Ragnarok, I don't think most people actually hated those sections because maybe Atreus simply sucked. I mean, that may be one of the reasons, but I think the problem might actually go a bit deeper than that. You see, Kratos has this weight to him. When he speaks, when he moves, it's almost like he's holding back Ragnarok. There's a power behind the things that he can do. We know what he's capable of, so we understand how dangerous he actually is. Atreus, on the other hand, it's more like sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows everywhere. He's just curious. He's over here discovering things. He's naive. He's still learning. He doesn't have that aura. He doesn't have that gravitas that we're talking about. You know what I mean? And the scary part that clicked for me is that when you look at the Atreus sections, they still feel like God of War. It's just that they are missing the emotional key to make it work. Now, when it comes to God of War Laufey, I don't think that the game is automatically doomed. And the reason I say that is we were just discussing right now the 007 game just moments ago about how much can you actually change something before it stops feeling like itself. That was the main fear that gamers had when they saw that headline that Bond won't be a misogynistic dinosaur anymore. Because for them, they weren't necessarily thinking that Bond would be more evolved. They were seeing it as Bond is going to be corrected. His morally gray, pointy edges are going to be sanded off and made to appear prim and proper for modern sensibilities. And I think that this exact same anxiety is actually what is sitting underneath this God of War debate. Because maybe fans aren't just only afraid of losing Kratos, but they also happen to be afraid of crossing the threshold where God of War no longer feels like God of War. I mean, now we have the God of War's wife wearing the pants. What's next? When I get like his God of War starring Brock and Sindri, the Holder brothers, God of War Loki, God of War Angrboda. You know, it's like what's the threshold for when God of War actually stops being God of War? And we've seen this happen before, actually. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the perfect example. Most people agree that it's a fun game, big world, cool combat, but if I were to ask you, how many times did you hear people saying that Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a great game, but it is a bad Assassin's Creed game? When they said that, they're separating the identity from the quality. And it's that tension that we are seeing with God of War Laufey happening right now. Because people are saying, yeah, the game is good, you know, but it's not God of War if there is no God of War. Make it a spin-off game, make it a standalone game, give it a different title altogether. However, this is where things got extraordinarily interesting for me. Like I said before, when I watched the gameplay, it still felt like God of War to me. It wasn't identical one-to-one, but it did feel as if it's a blood relative. It feels conducive to the God of War universe from 2018. It's compatible with that universe when you put Faye inside there. We can still look at it and still say that is God of War. Because if you actually think about it for a second, Faye isn't some random protagonist. Faye is the wife of the Ghost of Sparta. She's the mother of Atreus, the mother of Loki, the god of mischief, the hidden architect of the Norse world, the person who basically planned out Ragnarok while still being dead, the same person who went toe-to-toe with a drunken Thor and lived to tell the tale. So this is less of a replacement and more of a expansion, or even more specifically, closure. Because believe it or not, guys, the Norse mythology still has loose threads that still haven't been properly addressed and closed. 2018 left a lot of stuff behind that was unanswered, even in Ragnarok. Why Faye planned the journey the way she did, the things that she knew, the things that she hid. Who blew the freaking horn? So if Santa Monica wants to actually close Norse mythology chapter properly, it would make sense that they do so first before moving on to God of War Egypt with Kratos taking the reins once again. Right now, it seems that Faye's story is one side of the God of War Norse mythos that is yet to be told, and we're finally getting it. It's almost like a love letter to fans, if you will. But here is one massive problem that Santa Monica still has to solve and gamble with. Because I remember playing Uncharted Lost Legacy, And the game felt very Uncharted. It still had the puzzles, it had climbing, all the nuggets that go into making Uncharted what Uncharted actually is. However, in my playthrough, I still remember feeling, ah, bruh, where is Drake? I wish Nate was here. Nate is so cool, he's so fun, he's so charming, he's endearing. I wish he was here. Like the other characters, no shade on them, they're cool and all. Chloe, it's nice, but they are not Nathan Drake. Nathan Drake is Uncharted. He's the one that gives me those Indiana Jones vibes, man. So it did feel like there was an emotional crater that wasn't being filled. So the experiment here that Santa Monica has to contend with is that if players say they get their hands on God of War Laufey and they play it for about 20 hours and they come out of that thinking, yeah, man, the game is nice, it's really cool, I like it, combat is fun, but this would be so much cooler if Kratos was here, man. Just imagine if he's the one fighting these Egyptian gods, telling them what shit is, it would be so much more epic. If players walk away feeling like that, then the experiment has failed. Santa Monica has gambled, they went all in, and they went bust. However, if players play God of War Laufey, and once the entire campaign is through, they come out thinking, wow, I can finally understand why Kratos fell in love with this woman. Now I understand why this woman was able to go toe-to-toe with the freaking God of Thunder. Now I get it. You see, if that happens, Santa Monica has succeeded. They have managed to capture lightning in a bottle twice. So, are fans right to be skeptical or to be worried? Absolutely, they are. However, I still think that they might be missing something. Because God of War has already gone through a tremendous transformation already, and people still stayed. I remember when God of War 2018 was announced, the discourse was incredible. People were like saying, this is not God of War, guy. I'm supposed to be killing gods, bro. Why the hell am I babysitting this kid? Why am I picking flowers? This is not God of War. Why is the camera all up in his ass like that? Nah, man. I'm supposed to be doing my double jumps. Where is my combo meter, guy? This is not God of War, But then 2018 dropped, and we discovered that what we believed as OG God of War veteran players was actual God of War was not the combo meter, it wasn't double jumps, it wasn't free dynamic camera. Apparently, all of that wasn't really God of War. There was something far more core to the identity of God of War that we didn't know. And once we played 2018, we walked away thinking, wow, they still stayed true to what God of War is. Kratos still feels like Kratos. He still feels dangerous, but it feels like there's so much more to him now. He still has the rage. It's still God of War. You know what I mean? So God of War basically changed almost everything about itself without actually losing itself in the process. So the question of can God of War survive without Kratos is not the right question we ought to be asking. The right question we ought to be asking, far more titillating, is how much can God of War change before it stops feeling like God of War? And just maybe, Faye isn't the enemy. She's not here to replace Kratos, but rather, she is here to finish the myth so that Kratos can walk into the next one.